Continuing with our game phase system, we're going to set up the delegates for each phase now. So we're going to need a delegate for each phase. So I'm going to copy that, and just to speed things up, every game phase is going to have its game phase and delegate in it. So I might just this in another here. So I've got my phases there. And we're going to need a delegate for everything beyond new game. Yes, I've got a semicolon there. So the first one will be load game data. We need one for initiate, setup, preload, pre-gameplay, gameplay, post-gameplay, and abort. The load game data. This is a bit of a boring part, almost data entry at this point. I think the quickest way is going to be just to copy this. Holding Alt, by the way. I was trying to do that. Now I'm just going to our delegates. Now I'm going to copy these again. And I don't think I need, no, I'm not going to use those accessors for those. We need a different one. We're going to use function. And this is where we're going to pass that R value. I'm going to pass the delegate as an R value. Still put it here. It's going to be delegate. I'm going to do this. That'll be the double ampersand for the R value delegate. And it's going to accept fluid reference, and that's going to be the task ID. And it's going to accept a string, so that'll be the text that we want to pass in. And we'll call that text. Oh, we'll call it text because we'll call it debug name. And we'll just set that to an empty string. So if we don't pass in anything, it won't matter. Then I'm going to duplicate this for each delegate. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, I think. And then set the delegate. So this is setting the delegate type that'll be passed into the function. And then here we just want to change the on-game phase. And all those. We're going to want to register a task. So that will go into our task map automatically. And then we want to check if the current phase is greater than or equal to the phase that this is requesting. So if it's great for this one particular one here, we want to check if it's greater than or equal to the load game data phase. So what that's checking for is if whoever's requesting a task for a certain phase, if that phase is already current or has passed, then just execute. We're going to tell it to execute whatever code it needs to do straight away. We're just going to tell the delegate to. If it's not, we're going to add it to the observer list. So this will be this is where we change the ownership of the delegate that's just been passed in here. So it's on-game phase data loaded. I want the actual delegate there. I'm going to add, and we use this move temp function. So that'll add the incoming delegate assignment to our delegate here. So now we just need to replicate for this for each phase, but we just need to check that each phase, so it's a different phase, and we also need to add it to each different delegate. Right. The last thing we need to do here is this. Sorry, this wasn't register task, but we need to do the register task thing here on each call or register. So that's literally what this function is doing. It's doing either going to call it or it's going to register it to be notified. So we still want to register a task though, so our game face system doesn't just skip over the. Sorry, we only want to. So we're only going to register the. Sorry, we're not going to put it there. We're going to put it in the loop here. So this is where we're going to register a task because we don't want to. If it's just going to execute it straight away, we're not going to worry about registering the task. But if it's waiting for the game phase, we don't want to skip that game phase if it's got a task to do. So we need a register phase task. And this is going to take the phase that it's registering to. It's going to take the GUID, will be a reference, and it's going to take that string. So I really want to do this if we are the server and have authority. We want to know, we just want to check if the task ID is valid. So if it's not valid, we'll create one. So if task ID is valid, so we're just checking that the GUID is valid. It should be valid each time because we'll send one through as we call the thing, but that's just like a safety thing. And then here we're actually going to register with our phase registrations data map. So we're going to add, and the GUID is going to be our task ID, so that's the key for the map, and then our value is going to be that struct that we created. So I've named it wrong. Hang on, I'm just going to fix that. I've added an extra F in there, so let's just add. Yeah, I'm going to create a struct there. We'll use that constructor we made to pass in the values, but I'll just fix the name of this. I'll make that additional F there. So then for the constructor, we need to pass in the phase and task ID. Oh wait, not task ID, the debug name. We just need to add that register phase call in each of our caller registers here. Put it to the first one, yeah. So task, phase, task ID. Right. I think the first thing we might do is actually debug our state system and see if it's just ticking through each state. So let's add debug. I think we'll add a tick to this and protect it here. No, it's public. So put it up here. And in here, we'll do a printer screen for what the current phase is. I'll just say if and be just one, and put the time to display as -1. That just does for an instant, so it should be enough for tick. blue, and then our string will be f string, and we want to get the enum display name, enum get display value as text, and the value we want is the gameplay state. So let's build and go into the editor. Oh, yeah. So there's two setups for enums, and one is enum like this, and the other is a class. And we want to use the class type. That'll sort out that error. So without the class type, you have to use the t-enum as byte, and it's kind of annoying. So I'm pretty sure this is the preferred method, or the recommended way method. Oh, sorry, I've totally forgotten to actually put it into the string. We need a text. We need to pass it in as a string. String. I'll just change this time to display to 0.1. I think the negative one works with logs, not the on screen. And the other thing we need to do is enable tick. So it's a primary actor tick. We need to set the can ever tick to true, and the start with tick enabled. Set that to be on my default. Start with tick enabled. Set true. All right, let's try building that. Okay, that's successful. So now this is the first time we've loaded up the editor since we created the game data. We're just going to create the actual game data asset. So I'm going to come into RS Core Content, create a data folder, and we need to make that default game data that it's going to be looking up when it can't find any other data. So we're just going to come miscellaneous data asset, and we're going to find our data game data class, and it had to be called this, or whatever name you use. If you use the same name as me, it was DA underscore game data default. I'll just save this because we need to add it to the asset manager. So if you come into project settings, asset manager, and this is the map one I mentioned about. So we go into the game data. We filtered this top one that only shows maps. You can see there it's only showing our test map. So we need to add a new one here for our game data. So add that. That always cook on. And then we called it game data. If you remember in our, actually I'll flick back to that and just show you, because in our static game data reference, we use this here. This is what has to match up to that setting in the editor or in the asset manager. So that matches it up. And then here this is the class, the game data asset. And then we just need to add the directory for it. This is pointing at where to look up for these data assets. Is set to automatically find them. So we're just going to point that to our data folder we just created. So we'll just populate this with some generic data. At the game data type, or map, testing, round, whatever. Just making up some data here. We're not really using this data until we start doing some UI stuff. So including game. So there we go. Our states are cycling through, so that's what we're after. And when it gets to the end, it doesn't go to abort, it goes back to new game. So that's what we wanted. So now what we want to do is register some tasks, so it doesn't just cycle through, it actually stops on a task or on a game state or a game phase that we want. So in begin play, before we start the game phase timer, we'll register a task here to wait for gameplay data. So we call that the game phase. load gameplay data, and we're going to set up the delegate. So we need the if on gameplay delegate, if delegate. So now we're creating the binding, creating a U-object, this class, and then we'll create a function for this on game data loaded. And then, so that's the delegate we're going to pass in. And then we need the task ID. So we'll create a variable for that under private. That's fGUID. And we'll call it game data task ID. Like that. And then it's just the debug string. So I'm just going to bring this in a line. We'll call it game state, game data. Oh, we already created that function. That's right, we did that earlier. So that's where that's going to come into play. So what will happen is we'll register for this phase, and this will fail because game data won't be set. But what we'll do on the game mode is we'll register the same task, but this will, and then we'll have the game data, once it loads game data, call this on the game state. So let's go to our game mode, and go to init game state, and we'll get a reference to our game state. And because this is the beginning of the cycle of loading up, so this is, we might actually, what we'll do is we'll reset the registry, the task registry here, rather than in the game state begin play, because this will be the first thing to add a task to the game state. So in case this runs before begin play, we'll reset the registry here, and then we can start adding to it without worrying about the game state resetting it on us later. So we'll make a function for that. I'll just call it reset game phase registry, and then I'm just going to paste in the same task, and then rather than call init game data here, that'll be the function that gets called when this phase hits. Yeah. And then we'll need a task for this, so make a private section on our game mode, new property, good. We'll call this load game data. Okay. Change this to game mode. Alright, so we just need to create this to our game state. It'll have to be public. And all we're going to do is just empty that map phase registry. Good to go, so that should have fixed that up. So now the process should be that we'll hit the load game data phase. The init game will fire, we'll wait 1 frame, and then we'll assign the game data either from option string or the default asset, which we just set up in the editor. And then that'll go through the loading phase. So once it's loaded, it'll get to the on game data loaded, and then we'll set the game data on the game state. And then here, game phase can continue on after. So whenever we register a phase task, we're going to have to register that we've completed the task. So we're going to need a function on the game state for that. So we'll call it register phase, and that'll just pass the GUID ID. Check around the server, see if we can find that key in our map. So we were looking for that registration ID in our phase registration data. And if we find that, we want to mark it complete. So then back in our game mode, once we are happy that we've loaded the data and we've set it on the game state, and then tell the game state that we have successfully completed our task, and it's the task that we've completed is the load game data, like so. So in our set game data, oh yeah, we've already got it here. So the set game data will, if it successfully sets the new game data, it'll call that on game data loaded again, and this time the game data won't be null. So here we could, before we do anything, we could read our game data now and see if there's any game phase tasks that we want to register based on what's in the game data for this game type that we're about to launch into. Obviously don't have any of that yet, but like later on we'll be able to see if there's a menu or a lobby and direct different phases for different loading based on what's going on. But for now, what we want to do is register that we have game data. So our wait for game data task is complete. So actually what we might do, I probably should have done it in the game mode too, is we'll check that our wait for game data task is valid. And just do an is valid on a fGUID, because if the f valid check just checks if it's just a 0 good, and if it's not, it's valid, should be fine. And then we'll just register task complete, and the task is wait for game data. Now the other thing we might do is, so we're just not cycling through our game states, we might add another phase here at startup. What I'll do is I won't duplicate it, I'll call another registration here. Oops. So what I'm going to register is gameplay. So what we'll do is we'll register a gameplay and then we'll just stop. We won't ever complete the task, so we'll stop at gameplay. So just hit here. And we'll create that function. Yeah. And for now we'll just leave that blank, that's fine. So that'll be, it'll probably be blank anyway, to be honest, because we don't really want to end on gameplay until someone ends it. Let's go back to begin play. Be all set now. So I might just label these because we'd end up with a few here. So this one is wait, game data be loaded. Right, so give that a shot. Oh, wait, no, I'm going to stop that. Sorry, I just realized we don't have one key aspect. When the actual game, so we're registering to these game phases, but we're not actually broadcasting anywhere that we're at a certain phase. So that's not much is going to happen. So what's happening is we're registering and we're saying once this delegate is broadcasted via this thing. So we probably would have just got stuck at the loading game data phase. But what we're going to do though is we had the on rep for the game phase. This is where we're going to broadcast all the states. So we're just going to do a switch here, and we're going to switch on the game phase state, and it's going to be kind to me and give me the things. So that's excellent. Saves a heap of time. So we'll start here. There we go. We don't have any delegate for those first two, so they'll just go through, no broadcast, that's fine. So we should be good now. Alright, so back in the editor, we shouldn't have to change anything. So loading phase. Why are we not going wrong? let's go to that next phase. See what's happening here. Current phase. Loading. And it's got a task for loading. That's not right. Where's our map? Game phase loading. What have I done? So, wrong with the registration. Register task. Passing through the phase. Oh. How is that? You know what? I reckon I've messed up the struct types. Yeah, okay. So I passed in these, but I didn't actually find them. My bad. Hopefully you've seen that. What's this string? Right. We should be able to just do a live build to fix that. If we get rid of our yeah, stop that, build, and try again. New game, load game data, load game. Should stop on gameplay. Yeah. So there's not really much to see with loading game data, but it happened. We know it happened because it wouldn't have gone on if it wasn't valid, so that's a bit of validation for us. I'll leave the game phase system there. We'll definitely be using the game phase system throughout the series as we add new steps in the phase of our entire game as we add things and do other things. So there'll be more to come with the game phase system. And that'll conclude section 2. The next video will be on to section 3, where we'll bring over our RTS player controller into a plugin of its own and integrate it in with RTS Core. See you then. Thanks for watching.